Hello, my name's Lindsay Brown. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to talk about a council meeting that I attended last night, which was the 26th of August. It is Antrim and Newtownabbey Borough Council. Now, this is my perspective, this is my opinions on the meeting, this is how I seen the discussion. You know, we will not be using the fancy terminology that some of these councillors and politicians use. We'll be using just normal talk, right? Is that even a way to say it? Just normal talk, right? You know, I think sometimes they think it makes them sound smarter to use this terminology. It doesn't, right? You know, just knowing fancy words does not make you a good person or make me see that you've got some sort of really great awareness of what's going on. And big words, you know, words do matter, I get it, but showing off with big words is not going to impress me. Anyway, we like start off with a bit of crack, eh? Right, so they have won, this particular council has won some sort of council award in the UK. This is the second time they've won it, so well done, guys. And they're going to be going to Glasgow for some sort of award ceremony, so enjoy your wee jolly. I'll let you guys in the comments tell me whether or not you think that they deserve any awards. Any of the councils or politicians or anything at the minute deserve any awards, right? So then they asked the first question, which is any interests. So to me that question is there any pressing concerns that any of these councillors want to bring to the table that's not on the agenda, right? That's how I see that question. I will double check to make sure I'm picking up that question correctly. But the 3 to 4 times I've been at these meetings, nobody has brought up any interests that need talked about that aren't on the agenda, which I find very surprising considering what's going on within our communities at the minute. But hey ho, there we go. Now there was a new mayor, a lady. I think she seemed good. I think she seemed good. She seemed to handle the room really, really well, and she seemed nice. Yeah, look, she did. She seemed well, you know, only time will tell. But first impressions, I liked her. I liked her. Now, I wasn't speaking to her, I just mean, you know what I mean. So anyway, then they go into bringing up motions, okay? So from my understanding and how I would put that into normal talk, would be that it is some sort of a proposal. So the councillors will work on ideas and proposals that they think will benefit the community, and they bring it up as a motion. And then this motion is voted on, okay? This is where it gets good, but you're not going to be surprised, okay? I'd like to tell you were going to be surprised and it was going to be something really good. When I say this is going to be good, it's going to be good in a way where you're going to go, oh, right? So Sinn Féin brought a motion. Now, this video, I'll be going through the layout of the council meeting last night. I will do another video going into detail of more on this particular motion because I'm waiting on the amendments and last night's minutes getting uploaded. So once that's all sorted, I will go through that in more detail. But really what the motion is to spend more time, money and energy on racism. So nothing to do with the safety of the women and children or the communities, nothing to do with the future generations. No, it's let's tackle the really bad racism that's going on in the country, whenever, quite frankly, there isn't really bad racism going on in the country. And if you go back and watch one of CJ Audit's videos, you will see there was some sort of culture day in Belfast a few weeks ago. And so he went round a load of people asking them, have they ever experienced racism? And let me tell you, the majority answered no. We have not experienced racism. So why is our councillors so interested in tackling this bad racism whenever actually if they were to speak to the people on the street, they would see that these people aren't even experiencing racism? Now there was one sort of young lad, I think, from my memory of the video, that said that he had a little bit in school, a little bit, but nothing that he couldn't handle. Now, he shouldn't have to handle any. Don't get me wrong on that. You know, there shouldn't be any. But, you know, it was something that he was able to deal with. Another lady, I think it was, says that she hadn't experienced racism personally, but she did know about all this far-right carry-on that was going on at these demos. Right? So again, it's come back to that programming. These people aren't experiencing it personally, but they're being told that there's racists out there, whenever that's absolute, well, there may be some racists, but the majority of people just want the safety for their women and children and the future generations. They're not racist, right? So, but she felt she needed to mention that, not because she felt it personally, but because obviously she's being told about all these bad people at these demos, even though these are not bad people. They're just concerned citizens, right? So she then went on, the Sinn Féin councillor. And just a note on this, now it wasn't this woman speaking, but another woman in Sinn Féin, she insists, in the meetings I've been to, she insists in talking in Irish. She insists. And that's why I think I like that. And I don't care if you talk Irish all you want, but when you're in a meeting with all English speaking people, you got to speak, they got to know what you're talking about, especially if you're voting on something. And the mayor, she says, you're going to have to answer that in English, or something to those words. Speak Irish all you want, doesn't really matter. But, if you're in this type of environment, you're voting on something, you gotta answer in the language that everybody else is in. Anyway, she went on then, so she mentioned the racism, then she went on to talk about calling illegal immigrants is downgrading for them. And I got thinking, okay, and I try to bring these back to different scenarios, and I thought about, I've been called a junkie, right? Now, being called a junkie, it's not nice, right? Of course it's fucking not, right? There's my good terminology coming out. But being called a junkie is not nice. It is downgrading. It is degrading. It is, right? It is. But the fact is, I was a junkie. So if somebody calls me a junkie, it's still a fact, right? Not anymore, you know what I mean? But it's still a fact. It's still a fact. So I can't go around and go, oh, well, you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to say that. Because it's a fact. Even though it may not be a great word, it's still a fact, right? So to me, that applies then to these illegal immigrants. They may not like it, but it's still a fact. Just like I may not like being called a junkie, but it's still a fact. I have to control my emotions on that, and I have to be able to take it. It's a fact. It's no problem, whatever. But these guys have, they're coming over in small boats or on lorries or whatever. They're breaking into the country. The fact is, they are illegal immigrants, irregular immigrants, all this, You can't just go around changing words just because you have an agenda. The facts are the facts, and that's just how I see it. So I do. So she went on to talk about that this borough wants to make everybody feel at home. They want everybody to call this home. That diversity is our strength. Comment on that below too. I'd love to know how many people think diversity is our strength, but that's not one to get into now. So this is all the rhetoric that they were talking about. They didn't mention anything about their local people. It was all, again, to try and control the concerned people of this country, because they're starting to speak up. So obviously Sinn Féin's panicking, going, oh, we need to start putting more control in. We need to start putting more money and energy into dealing with these people, right? They mentioned about, calling them this online and this and that. And I sat there going, she know, eh? Anyway, so she wanted to set out steps to renew training and get some sort of hub and connection with PSNI and stuff like that, to come down, more or less, as far as I can see, it's to come down hard on concerned parents. To me, that's what she was trying to do, right? So then DUP, well, I'm near sure it was DUP, because this guy, I was sitting beside a couple of other DUP ones that I had recognised, so I near think, so they come up and they says, no, well, we want to make some amendments to that. And they started talking about 2 and 3 need removed of these amendments. Like we say, we'll go through that in more detail in another video. He also went on to say that, it's not right to call concerned people racists whenever they are just given their voice about being concerned, and they're just shut down and called this name. He says you can't just call them racist because they say they're concerned about what's happening to the country, and I totally agree with what he said there. And then he went on to talk about illegal is actually a term of law, and it is, that word is a term of law. So, he spoke about you can't go changing these terms of law, that illegal is, there's lots of things that are illegal, So you can't just shut it down for one particular thing. Again, this isn't my words from my notes, but it's the kind of thing that he was talking about. And then he also went on to talk about that immigration is a crisis and it needs dealt with separately. So this is what Sinn Féin's trying to do. They're trying to put illegal immigration in with racism, because they want to put that all into one wee box, whenever it's not at all, because the people that are talking about concerned about illegal immigration are not racist. But this, again, it's their rhetoric that they want everybody to believe that. So it was really good, I guess, that the DUP have said, no, well, this is actually two separate issues, because illegal immigration, people concerned about that are not, doesn't mean that they're racists. So anyway, then they went on, and Sinn Féin decided that they wouldn't accept the amendments. They wanted she says, I've worked on this really hard. So that's where her wages are going, for her working on something that doesn't need done, right? But anyway, she's worked on it really hard. Fair play to her, she's given her all. Obviously, she believes what she's talking about, or does she? Who knows, anyway. She went on then, calling them illegal is dehumanising, all the rest of it. So anyway, then a couple of people started to get a bit, ooh, what's going on here? Because somebody suggested, and I don't know what party this was from, but he suggested that actually the proposers of the motion and the proposers of the amendments actually got together at a different date and sat and discussed it and seen if they could come up with a better motion. Then somebody else jumped in and went, you can't do that, you can't just suggest, we're just about to vote on this amendment and you can't start suggesting different things now and all this kind of carry on, right? But anyway, it turned out that Sinn Féin didn't want to defer anyway. They had done their motion and they were not prepared to negotiate, to talk on it. They weren't prepared to do anything, right? They were going with their motion and they weren't prepared to have a discussion. So the vote went out for the amendment. So that's how they do it. They vote on the amendment before then they vote on the motion, because obviously if the amendment goes through, the motion then changes a little bit and then they vote on the motion itself. So the amendment won. It won 19 votes to 17. Sinn Féin, as I'm sure you know, said that they were against it, and 19 people said they were for it. So what that means is that the motion's now different. These amendments are made, and the motion that's put forward for the vote now is with the amendments included. So the vote went again, and this is, hold on. Oh, then somebody else spoke up, and they wanted something else included in it. And do you know what I noticed? This person that spoke up, one of the Sinn Féin guys had come round and whispered something in his ear, and he spoke up about something, and it was to remove a subsection and include promote anti-racism. So it was I'm not sure exactly, I'll go through my notes better on that one, but again, they didn't vote for that amendment. So the original amendment included in that motion is the motion that's going forward. Is that making sense now? So the main vote for the new motion with the first amendment in it was granted, and that motion was voted 19 for. So Sinn Féin then voted against their own motion because of these amendments. Now the bit I'm not getting is why DUP voted for it, or why it was then voted. Why did they not just all vote against? Because Sinn Féin was going to vote against it anyway, so why was it not all voted against? Right? And then that means the motion would have been nothing, where they're allowing some of the motion through. So we'll get into that, like I say, once I get the agenda and the minutes and stuff from yesterday, we'll get into that in a bit more detail, and I will be speaking to some of the councillors to find out why. Because I really worry that it was well, do you know what, now Sinn Féin are voting against their own motion with these amendments, well, we'll vote for it. Is it still that, well, if they're going against, we'll go for, or if they're going for, we'll go against? So, look, I'll find out a bit more information on that. Then that was that. So then they went on to talk about a few more things, which was the items for discussion. They're still going on about this Irish Sign Language. So they're going on about street names, which I suppose maybe they have to do. And for anybody that loves the circus, they are going to have the circus in Fee 36 again this year. So that was about the height of it. There's a few other bits and pieces that I don't think really mattered. But like I say, catch the next video, guys, where we go through this motion in more detail. Please comment, share, subscribe, and keep following for more information on what is going on in our beautiful wee country.